My name is Dr Sen Raj and I'm chair of the Amnesty International UK Section Board. Many of you probably have heard of Amnesty International before. It's a global human rights movement that brings people together, ordinary people, to campaign for rights, freedom, justice and safety, particularly for those who are censored, marginalised and discriminated against by their governments and other actors. And certainly as a queer person, as a migrant, as someone who grew up in a racialised environment in Australia, I have felt very passionate about a number of the issues that Amnesty campaigns for, from the rights of people who seek asylum, through the rights of LGBTIQA+ people, to the rights of women. In order to be a movement that's authentic and credible about human rights, you can't work for people, you need to work with them. You need to amplify the voices of those who are most impacted by human rights abuses. You need to create the conditions for people to speak up for themselves, which is why it's so important as a movement that we are diverse, not just through our membership and activists, but all the way through to our governance structures, the way we organize, the way we communicate, the way we lobby, the way we campaign. We aren't going to achieve sustainable long-term human rights outcomes if we don't include the people whose human rights are being targeted. Having minoritized voices within our movement has been so important, not just for achieving the human rights goals that we set out for ourselves, but also for reimagining and reassessing what our human rights goals are in the first place, to fully understand, are we being intersectional? Are we being inclusive? Are we fully understanding the broader human rights violation here? I would say that we are seeing enormous successes now, not just in terms of our external work, but internally as well. So the way we campaign for the rights of people who seek asylum isn't to patronize them as having no voice, but actually to create spaces for them to speak about the issues that matter to them. Same when we do our work on Indigenous justice. It's very much about working with communities, building trust, rather than simply speaking on behalf of them, which in effect can offer its own forms of discrimination. I must admit, winning the Diversifying Group's board award on this issue was quite surprising to a number of us, given that a few years ago we were quite openly and rightly criticised for kind of the institutional racism within our organisation. I suppose for us that surprise was also quite positive, in the sense that it reminded us of how much work that we've managed to do over the last few years in this area, and how that work has been recognized by a number of external people. Because when you're so involved and so directly implicated in this work, you don't always see the kind of the depth or scale of what you've been able to achieve in that period of time. Certainly in the last few years as a board, we've prioritised anti-racism, equity, diversity and inclusion. This has not just been an organisational commitment or an operational one, but a governance one. And what that's meant for many people on the board, including myself, is a constant process of conversation, reflection and learning. Because we all come at these issues from different points of view, but also from different knowledge bases, And this is why for us as a board, it's been really important to cultivate a space for learning as kind of important as a disposition to this work, not being defensive, creating conditions for people to share failures and reflections, but also to hold space for people to learn and grow.